Comes to human nutrition, we have this weird expectation of just, well, absolute binary precision.
Oh, totally. We think it's 1-to-1.
Yes, you log exactly 75 grams of protein into your fitness tracker, and you just assume your body is depositing exactly 75 grams into your biological bank account.
Which, spoiler alert, it isn't.
Right. The math on the nutrition label does not always match the reality of what your body actually absorbs. And that profound disconnect is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today.
It's such an important topic.
We are taking you on a journey into the overwhelming and, frankly, completely fascinating world of post-bariatric surgery nutrition.
It is a vital topic for anyone navigating this path because, standard nutritional rules, the ones we've all been taught since, like middle school health class, they simply no longer apply to you after weight loss surgery.
They really don't. And we have a really fantastic stack of sources for today's exploration.
We do.
We are pulling heavily from the clinical insights of bariatric physician Dr. Kevin Huffman, who he basically maps out the massive physiological changes that happen post-surgery.
His data is incredible.
Yeah, and alongside his clinical data, we have detailed dietary phase guidelines and the actual product specifications from top-tier medical weight loss brands. So specifically, we're looking at AmBari Nutrition, Chakarite, Numetra, and Bariatric Advantage.
And merging Dr. Heffman's physiological data with those specific product formulations, it gives us a very complete picture of how to actually survive and thrive, really, in this new bodily environment.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to decode those profound physical changes your body undergoes, uncover the highly specific golden ratio of post-op nutrition, and definitively break down the absolute best tasting protein shakes and products.
Because taste matters.
It matters so much. We want to show you how to fuel your recovery without forcing you to sacrifice flavor. Because let's face it, if it tastes like wet chalk, you aren't going to drink it every day.
No one is doing that for long.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even start talking about exactly what you should be eating or drinking, we really have to look under the hood and understand exactly how your anatomy fundamentally changes after a procedure like a gastric bypass.
Yeah, we have to start with the mechanics. Dr. Huffman's insights into the anatomical changes of a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, they completely reframe how we should view digestion.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, in a normal non-surgical stomach, the food you swallow basically drops into a large muscular bag.
Right, the typical stomach.
Exactly. Your stomach's digestive juices, the acid, the enzymes, they all flood in and they mix together immediately. It's this cohesive, highly effective melting pot.
But the surgery entirely dismantles that melting pot, really.
It does. It really does. The internal plumbing is quite literally rerouted.
Wow.
The surgeon creates this tiny pouch at the top of the stomach and then attaches it directly to the middle portion of the small intestine.
Okay.
And the rest of the bypass stomach and the upper part of the intestine are reattached further down. It creates a shape that literally looks like a Y, which is, where the Roux-en-Y name comes from.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So because of this new Y shape, the food travels down one distinct arm, while your digestive enzymes and bile travel down an entirely separate arm.
So they are essentially kept completely isolated from each other.
Yes. They do not actually meet and mix until much, much further down in the intestinal tract. And this creates a massive mechanical problem.
Because they're running out of track.
Exactly. Because the workers and the materials meet so incredibly late in the digestive process, your body has a severely reduced window of time to actually pull those nutrients out of the food and into your bloodstream.
Before it just leaves.
Before the food just passes entirely out of your system, yeah.
It's like setting up a factory assembly line, but putting all the workers who actually build the product at the very end of the conveyor belt.
That's a great way to look at it.
By the time the parts finally reach them, half the items have already fallen off the belt and ended up in the trash before they could even be touched.
Precisely.
But wait. So if I log 75 grams of protein in my food tracker, you're telling me my body isn't actually getting 75 grams?
Your body is absolutely not getting 75 grams.
That is wild.
Dr. Huffman refers to this phenomenon as the bariatric tax.
The bariatric tax, okay.
Right. A healthy, unaltered gut absorbs nearly all the protein it encounters. A gastric bypass patient, on the other hand, might only absorb 70 to 80% of what they swallow.
So you're being taxed on every bite.
You are quite literally being taxed on every single bite. So if your daily clinical goal is 60 grams of protein and you meticulously swallow exactly 60 grams, your biological bank account might only actually receive like 45 grams of usable fuel.
So my fitness app is essentially lying to me.
Well, it's just ignorant of the tax.
Right, if I'm perfectly hitting my macros on my phone, I might still be severely malnourished in reality.
Exactly.
That explains why so many people in the bariatric community talk about feeling profoundly fatigued or notice their hair thinning, even when they swear they are doing everything right by the app. The app doesn't know about the tax.
The app assumes a fully functional standard issue stomach. And that mechanical failure doesn't stop with just the rerouted plumbing either.
There's more.
Oh yeah. The physical grinding capability of the stomach, the muscular contractions that pulverize food, that's largely gone because the new pouch is so small.
Right.
Furthermore, that tiny remaining pouch produces very little hydrochloric acid, which is the heavy-duty solvent you absolutely need to break down tough, complex protein bonds.
I actually noticed in the sources that this lack of acid is frequently made even worse because patients are almost always prescribed PPI medications like Prilosec during recovery.
Yeah, proton pump inhibitors are standard protocol. They prevent painful heartburn and ulcers while the surgical staples heal. But we have to look at how they actually work.
They shut off the acid, right?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
PPIs turn off the tiny biological faucets in your stomach lining that release acid. So they take an environment that already has severely reduced acid and they dry it up almost completely.
Wow. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why the medical community stresses that high-quality liquid protein supplements aren't just a fun dietary accessory for the first few weeks of recovery.
No, not at all.
They are a lifelong necessity. Your body fundamentally requires protein that is already broken down and ready for immediate absorption because it simply doesn't have the mechanical grinding tools or the chemical acid to do the heavy lifting itself anymore.
It's a permanent shift in how you must approach feeding yourself. You basically have to do the stomach's job for it before the food ever passes your lips.
But wait, if the pouch has virtually no acid, no grinding power, and almost zero holding capacity, how do you actually feed yourself without getting violently ill?
Carefully. Very carefully.
You can't just take a normal meal and eat a smaller portion of it. You have to be ruthlessly efficient with the tiny amount of space you have.
Efficiency is everything. You cannot waste a single cubic centimeter of pouch space on empty volume.
And this brings us to the specific nutritional rules of a bariatric shake and what the sources repeatedly call the golden ratio.
The golden ratio, yes.
Looking at the clinical guidelines, the golden ratio for the ideal post-op shake is exactly 15 grams of protein for every 100 calories.
It's highly specific.
It really is. It is engineered to be the perfect mathematical balance of maximizing nutrient density while keeping caloric intake in a range that continues to promote weight loss.
It's a very rigid benchmark for a reason.
Let me push back on this for a second, though.
Sure. If I'm a patient, why not just go to my local grocery store, walk down the supplement aisle, and buy one of those massive popular fitness shakes aimed at weightlifters?
Ah, the bodybuilder shakes.
Yeah, the ones that proudly advertise 30 grams of protein and 200 calories. Mathematically speaking, 30 over 200 reduces down to that exact same 15 to 100 ratio.
It does.
So why can't I just drink the bodybuilder shake?
The math might check out, but the physical reality of the product does not. It all comes down to physical volume and density.
Okay, explain that.
The 30-gram protein shakes you find at the grocery store, they rely on a huge physical volume of liquid and thickeners to suspend that much protein.
Right, they're usually huge bottles.
Exactly. Attempting to process that much dense volume at once will cause severe bloating, intense discomfort, and over time, it can potentially stretch out your healing pouch.
Oh, you do not want that.
Definitely not. The 15 grams per 100 calories ratio isn't just about the macros, it's designed to provide the perfect serving size, the actual physical footprint of the liquid that is gentle on your restricted anatomy. I get it, you can't put a gallon of premium gas into a pint-sized tank. It's going to overflow and cause a disaster, regardless of how high quality the fuel is.
A very messy disaster. And speaking of the fuel itself, we have to talk about the absolute most critical ingredient to avoid.
Sugar.
High sugar. Because the stomach's holding capacity, that valve that normally slowly releases food, is gone. So anything you consume drops almost instantly into the small intestine.
And I'm guessing the small intestine is not built for that.
No, it is not built to handle a sudden avalanche of hyperconcentrated sugar.
And when that happens, it triggers something called dumping syndrome, which, reading through the clinical descriptions, it sounds utterly terrifying.
It is a traumatic physical response, honestly.
What actually happens?
Well, when a heavy load of sugar enters the small intestine, the localized tissue essentially panics. It rapidly pulls massive amounts of fluid out of your bloodstream and into your intestines in a desperate attempt to dilute the sugar.
Whoa, out of your bloodstream.
Yes. This sudden, violent fluid shift causes a drastic drop in your overall blood volume.
Which means your brain and your heart suddenly don't have enough blood pressure.
Exactly. Which triggers a racing, pounding heart, cold sweats, severe nausea, and intense shakiness that, it literally forces people to just lie down on the floor.
That sounds awful.
And it can last for hours until the body equalizes.
Wow. So keeping sugar low, the sources say usually under 5 grams per serving is non-negotiable if you want to avoid the cold sweats and the shakes.
Absolutely non-negotiable.
But the guidelines are also very clear that you have to read the fine print, because a giant label screaming sugar-free on the front of a bottle can be a total trap.
Oh, it's a huge trap. You have to scour the ingredient list for sugar alcohol.
Things like maltitol or sorbitol.
Exactly.
The sources note that while these don't technically count as standard sugars on a nutrition label, they are notorious for causing extreme gas, severe bloating, and diarrhea in bariatric patients.
Yeah, your digestive system is already incredibly sensitive and chemically altered. Throwing a heavy dose of maltitol in there is like throwing a wrench into a fragile machine.
Makes sense.
And, a true medical grade shake isn't just about avoiding the bad elements. It must actively provide the necessary clinical support. It needs to be heavily fortified.
Because of the tax.
Right, because of that bariatric tax and malabsorption we discussed earlier, patients are at a remarkably high risk for systemic deficiencies. A well-formulated shake acts as an insurance policy.
Fortified with highly bioavailable forms of vitamin B12, iron, calcium, and vitamin D.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? It means the criteria for a good post-op shake are incredibly strict.
Very.
You need the 15 grams of protein per 100 calories ratio. You need a small overall physical volume. It must have less than 5 grams of total sugar to avoid dumping syndrome. It should avoid gut-wrecking sugar alcohols. And it needs to be fortified with specific vitamins.
That's a lot to look for.
That is a massive checklist. Standard off-the-shelf grocery store shakes almost never hit all those marks.
They rarely do.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to transition away from sports nutrition and look specifically at medical weight loss brands. And to do that effectively, you have to understand the actual types of protein these brands are utilizing.
Okay, let's decode those protein types, because Dr. Huffman highlighted 2 specific heavy hitters in his notes: whey protein isolate and calcium caseinate.
Yes.
Looking at how they behave in the body, it feels like we are dealing with a sprinter and a marathoner. Let's start with the sprinter. Whey protein isolate. How does this actually work?
Whey isolate is essentially the purest, fastest absorbing form of protein commercially available.
Okay.
Through aggressive microfiltration processing, the fat and the milk sugars, specifically the lactose, have been stripped away almost entirely.
So it's super clean.
Super clean. And because it's so pure and lacks those complex fats, it requires virtually no digestive effort from the stomach. It acts as the sprinter, rushing quickly through your pouch and absorbing directly into your bloodstream.
Okay, so if whey isolate is the fast-absorbing sprinter, perfect for when you wake up and your body is starving for nutrients, how do we find a brand that actually uses it without loading it up with junk?
That's where you look at clinical brands like Bariatric Advantage.
Oh, right.
Their HPMR line, which stands for High Protein Meal Replacement, is a prime example. They pack a massive 27 grams of pure whey isolate into a single serving, while keeping the sugar down to just 1 single gram.
That's impressive. Another brand the sources highlight in the whey isolate category is Chacarite. And they seem to be doing something really clever with their formulation regarding fiber.
They are. What's fascinating here is how Chacarite tackles one of the biggest post-op dilemmas.
Which is?
Fiber is notoriously tricky for bariatric patients. They desperately need it for bowel regularity, obviously, but traditional fibers often ferment quickly and cause the very gas and bloating they're trying to avoid.
Oh, that catch-22.
Exactly. So Chacarite pairs 20 grams of sugar-free whey isolate with a very specific, premium prebiotic fiber called Nutriflora.
What makes Nutriflora different from the fiber in, like, a standard grocery store supplement?
Its chemical structure dictates that it digests incredibly slowly. It passes through the sensitive upper GI tract and specifically targets the lower gut, feeding the beneficial bacteria without causing that intense, painful distension in the small pouch.
That is incredibly smart.
It really is.
So that's the fast-acting sprinter. Now let's talk about the marathoner, calcium caseinate.
Right. While whey isolate is engineered for speed, calcium caseinate is deliberately slow.
Okay.
It's also derived from dairy, but when it makes contact with the digestive tract, it behaves entirely differently. When calcium caseinate mixes with the small amount of stomach fluid you have left, it chemically reacts to form a thick, slow-digesting gel inside your pouch.
A gel. That sounds a little strange to swallow, to be honest, but I imagine the physical function of that is incredibly helpful.
It's so helpful. It creates a literal physical barrier.
Yeah.
Because it gels, it refuses to empty out of the pouch quickly.
So it just hangs out.
Yeah, it sits there, slowly breaking down and trickling, a steady, continuous stream of amino acids into your bloodstream over several hours.
That's the marathon.
Exactly. And more importantly for the patient's sanity, that physical mass in the pouch sends continuous signals to the brain that you are full, which is vital for stopping that nagging, gnawing midday hunger.
I was looking at the product list in our sources, and AmBari Nutrition seems to build their entire shake line around this calcium caseinate.
They do.
But what caught my eye is that they have flavors like chocolate brownie, cafe mocha, and chocolate salted caramel. I mean, are these actually hitting that 15 to 100 clinical ratio, or is it just clever marketing hiding a bunch of sugar?
No, the clinical data backs them up completely. They all provide exactly 15 grams of protein for 100 calories, and they consistently keep total sugar well under 5 grams.
That's amazing.
They are utilizing the hard clinical science of the slow-release caseinate gel, but they're masking it in a highly palatable, dessert-like flavor profile.
It's a brilliant bridge between clinical necessity and actually enjoying what you consume.
Absolutely.
But there's one more protein category in the sources, and it looks like the absolute frontier of medical nutrition: gut health innovations.
Oh, this is where nutritional science is heavily focused right now.
Okay.
We know that drastically altering the digestive plumbing permanently shifts the entire gut microbiome.
And the standout brand tackling this seems to be Nutritra.
Yes.
They have flavors like chocolate banana frap and cookies and cream, but they aren't just protein shakes, are they?
Not at all. They are uniquely formulated to actively manage that altered microbiome. Nutritra uses a specialized blend of proteins, but they also incorporate resistant maltodextrin, a specific type of functional fiber, alongside a probiotic strain called Bacillus coagulans.
Why that specific probiotic? Like, why Bacillus coagulans?
Because it's incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
It has this protective outer shell that allows it to survive whatever acidic environments it encounters, ensuring it actually makes it to the lower intestine.
Where it can actually do some good.
Exactly, where it actively populates and supports the new bacterial environment of the post-op gut.
So you aren't just feeding your muscles, you are actively engineering your gut flora with a cookies and cream frap.
Basically, yeah.
But, you know, if I'm listening to this, I'm probably thinking, am I really doomed to drinking liquid out of a shaker bottle for the next 40 years of my life?
Right.
Drinking the same textures day after day leads to what the sources call texture fatigue.
Oh, texture fatigue is arguably the leading behavioral cause of patients falling off their required nutritional plans. The brain just rejects the monotony.
It just wants to choose something.
Yes. To understand how to combat it, we really need to briefly look at the reality of a phased recovery.
The post-op eating phases, this is where the rubber meets the road.
So phase 1 begins the moment you wake up from surgery. This is the clear liquids phase, lasting a few days to a week.
Rough.
The absolute primary goal here isn't even nutrition, it's hydration. The stomach is violently inflamed and needs absolute rest. The clinical goal is getting 48 to 64 ounces of fluid a day, but you are restricted to sipping just 1 or 2 ounces every 15 minutes.
Wow. So it's all about broths, sugar-free gelatin, and completely clear protein drinks.
Right.
But then you graduate to phase 2, which is full liquids and pureed foods. This is where you introduce thicker nutrition, think the consistency of smooth applesauce, to preserve muscle mass as you rapidly drop weight.
Yes, but phase 2 also introduces a massive psychological hurdle, the 30-minute rule.
Oh man. The 30-minute rule dictates that you cannot drink any fluids for 30 minutes before, during, or 30 minutes after your meals.
Which is so hard.
Think about the psychological difficulty of that. Every meal you've ever had, you sit down at a restaurant and the first thing they do is pour you a glass of ice water. You are hardwired to drink while you chew. Why is this rule so vital?
It goes back to the missing holding capacity. If you drink liquid while you eat your pureed food, the liquid acts like a high-speed water slide.
Oh no.
It washes the food right out of your small pouch and flushes it directly into your intestine. You lose the physical sensation of fullness entirely, which completely defeats the restrictive purpose of the surgery and leads to immediate overeating.
Staring at a plate with no water glass is jarring.
Very.
And this leads us to phase 3, the soft foods phase, introducing tender, fork-mashable solids like flaky fish. But across phase 2 and phase 3, you are desperate for something that doesn't just feel like a thin drink.
Desperate for variety.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the sources outline this brilliant life hack using those AmBari calcium caseinate shakes we talked about earlier.
Yes. It's a perfect exercise in altering physical volume and concentration to cheat texture fatigue.
Okay, so if you take a standard AmBari shake packet, like the Dutch chocolate or the English toffee, and mix it with the standard 8 ounces of water, you get a creamy shake.
Right.
But if you cut the water in half, mixing the powder with exactly 4 ounces of cold water in a bowl, and just let it sit for a few minutes.
Well, magic happens.
That calcium caseinate chemically reacts, thickens up, and turns the entire thing into a rich, decadent, spoonable pudding.
And from a clinical compliance perspective, this is a massive advantage. It provides the sensory experience of eating a solid dessert with a spoon, offering crucial texture variety, while still perfectly hitting that 15-gram protein requirement and avoiding the sugar spikes.
It's so smart. But what about when you are cleared for normal foods and you desperately want a solid, crunchy snack, like a protein bar? A massive pain point for anyone who has ever dieted is that most protein bars on the market are incredibly dense.
They're like bricks.
They sit like a rock in a tiny bariatric pouch.
Heavy density is the enemy of a restricted pouch. You want nutrient density, sure, but not heavy physical mass that causes pain.
Right, and the sources specifically highlight AmBari's fluffy protein bars, like their cinnamon crisp flavor, as a solution to this. How do they actually differ from a standard workout bar?
Well, they are engineered using extruded protein crisps to completely avoid that heavy, chewy, brick-like feel.
Okay.
They have a light, airy texture that is remarkably similar to a Rice Krispie treat.
Oh, nice.
Nutritionally, they provide 15 grams of protein and an impressive 8 grams of fiber, while keeping the calories under 160. They satisfy that psychological need to bite and crunch something without taking up valuable, painful real estate in the stomach.
And as you experiment with puddings and fluffy bars across these phases, the sources stress that you cannot just rely on how you feel to know if your plan is working.
You absolutely cannot. Dr. Huffman makes a crucial clinical point about how we monitor success. Doctors often check a standard protein marker in the blood called albumin.
Oh.
But albumin is a lagging indicator. Its half-life means it stays stable in the blood for about 20 days. If your albumin finally drops on a lab test, you have likely been severely deficient for weeks.
You're finding out about the fire long after the house is burned down.
Precisely. So Dr. Huffman advises checking prealbumin instead. Prealbumin turns over every 2 to 3 days.
That's much faster.
It gives you and your medical team a real-time snapshot of your actual protein status right now. It allows you to adjust your shake intake immediately before irreversible symptoms like muscle wasting or hair loss begin.
So, to bring this all together for you listening, thriving after bariatric surgery requires acknowledging the mechanical reality of your new anatomy.
Truly.
You have to account for that bariatric tax on your digestion. You have to hunt down that golden ratio of 15 grams of protein per 100 calories, relentlessly avoid the sugars that trigger dumping syndrome, and use a strategic mix of fast-absorbing whey isolates like Bariatric Advantage and Chakrite alongside the slow-releasing calcium caseinate products like AmBari's shakes and puddings.
And don't forget to leverage the advanced gut-healthy options like Numetra to actively support your microbiome. It is a highly specialized, lifelong balancing act.
It really is an entirely new way of living. Now, as we wrap up, we always like to leave you with something to chew on.
Yes. We spent this entire deep dive discussing how to modify the food we swallow to accommodate the permanent physical changes of surgery, right? The lost grinding capacity, the altered timing, and the massive shift in the gut microbiome.
Right.
But here is a thought that pushes the boundaries of the source material. If our gut bacteria fundamentally control how efficiently we process nitrogen and absorb protein, could the future of bariatric recovery look completely different?
How so?
Well, instead of spending decades meticulously modifying our shakes and turning powders into puddings, could the future rely on transplanting highly specific, customized gut microbiomes into patients post-surgery, essentially installing a brand new bacterial operating system designed to do all the heavy digestive lifting for us?
A completely upgraded bacterial workforce on the assembly line.
Exactly.
That is a fascinating vision of the future. But until that day comes, you're going to want to stick to the golden ratio and maybe whip up some of that English toffee pudding. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, just because the accounting of your digestion has changed doesn't mean you can't balance the books beautifully. Catch you next time.